How you manage your stress can impact your decisions, and the choices you make today about your body, your mindset, is going to shape your future. So this morning we're joined by a powerhouse panel with expertise across all these areas. From my left, we have Dr. Vasant Basdeo, specialist family physician, smoking cessation expert, public health educator, and board member of the Trinidad and Tobago Cancer Society. Next to him, we have Dr. Asante LeBlanc, clinical densitometrist. Dr. LeBlanc, did I pronounce that correctly? Right. Certified medical herbalist, founder and director of Victoria Clinic, and also board member of the Trinidad and Tobago Cancer Society. Next to her, we have Mr. Yohance, IODK, behavior change consultant and founder of IODK Consultancy. We then have Mr. Daron Jacob, senior financial advisor at Sagicor, and last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Surendra Dhanraj, medical advisor at Heritage Petroleum, a seasoned public health professional with over 25 years in the medical field and deep expertise in occupational and environmental health. So we're going to kick it off this morning with you, Dr. Dhanraj. We're going to go straight into environmental health. When we think about the environment, we often think about the scenery, greenery, the coastlines. But let's focus a little bit on environmental issues for a second. Can you talk us through pollution and climate change and how that's affecting our region today?
Yeah, simply put, it's really a big issue, and it's something that I'm really happy that we're able to discuss. Now, when you look at the pollution especially, now that's an effect out of the climate change, which, I think you all would have heard for climate change, a big issue is going to be elevation of temperatures, sea level changes, you're going to have adverse weather events. But because of those things that can bring disruption to the normal functioning of your public health services, you will have disruption in collecting of waste and disruption of dump sites and so. And these things can then lead to a lot of issues that could propagate pollution. All right, now when we look at pollution by itself, for the very young child, if you have lead in the environment, that could lead to certain neurologic changes, brain changes. If we have dust, and we have a huge plume of Sahara dust that is really coming through now, that excessive amount of dust could lead to aggravation in children, especially with respiratory symptoms. Now, if we look at it, we will always hear with any medical conditions, who are the at-risk groups? And it's always children, the very elderly, or persons with weakened immune systems. So we see that youth really are a subset that we do need to focus on. And pollution, when we have issues with forest fires because of the raised temperatures, that in itself could lead to pollution of the atmosphere, worsening of respiratory symptoms. If we have fires in dump sites, you're going to have a whole lot of what we call volatile compounds that will be produced again, creating respiratory issues. And that's just a few. But with climate change as well, we have the temperature changes. And it's not always about the pollution aspect, but the climate change itself. When we look at things, let's look at mosquitoes, a very relevant thing for us in the Caribbean. But now, even in areas of the Americas, because of that warming of the environment, we have an increased zone, not just equatorial. Other areas are starting to get issues of the Aedes aegypti. And then we have, what is the big issue out of mosquitoes? Dengue. Dengue affecting other areas. With pollution, you can have the waterways. We can have extreme runoff into our rivers and then subsequently into the water bodies, lakes, and oceans. That can lead to algae bloom, which can be termed pollution. It can affect the ecosystem, the delicate ecosystem. So it's manifold. Those are just a few, but and of course the big one, temperatures. Research has shown mental health is definitely affected, which is among the focus today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dr. LeBlanc, we're seeing a lot of interest in plant-based wellness and herbal remedies. How would you say the quality of our environment would impact natural remedies and this holistic approach to healthcare?
Right. So I don't think my mic is on. Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So in terms of plant-based remedies, it's important to understand that almost all medication started from plants. Penicillin is our biggest example, being fungus, and epinephrine as well. So it's important to understand that when we think of herbal medicine, it's not just bush medicine. It's just not something that you don't think of. Plants are very potent. But if you study traditional Chinese medicine, native Indian medicine, and our cultural medicine, you'll see that every plant that you reap and harvest for medicine is going to be different at every time. And that is because it goes with the season, it goes with the soil that it's planted in, the intent in which it was planted. Did it grow wild or did you plant it intentionally? And it sounds very wahoo, but it is very true. Now with pollution, we're now coming to lead in the soil, other toxic heavy metals in the soil. The waters are toxic as well, so that can affect the plants. However, we do have evolution, we do have, survival of the fittest, so the plants will try to survive that and combat, but you can see an impact, especially if you're talking that you want to grow specifically, let's say, I want to grow ashwagandha at this time, then you are creating an unnatural environment. You're creating this environment because you want to have it in a certain stable environment. But if I say whatever grows around me will heal me, that's a different concept, because then the universe and nature will take care of that. So then when we say you're having a wild-crafted herb-based formula, that's different to the herbs came from a specific plant where it grew. So the impact of the environment is huge. There's no doubt about it, but like with every living thing, we can see adaptation. Yeah?
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So Dr. Dhanraj, I want to bring this question back to you. What role can the youth play today in sustainability and the environment?
No, definitely a major role. I mean, when you look at certain international, you have, let's say, Sweden, Greta Thunberg, a really big climate advocate. And that's somebody that's very young. And I could call names from Canada, Uganda, all efforts led by youth. They bring focus to issues and they are able to, maybe point policy in a particular direction. So don't discount your perspective. In fact, I encourage youths, you do have a unique way of looking at things sometimes that adults may bypass. So, if you have ideas, bring it to the fore, and who knows, the traction that is created can lead to greater things. Leadership is important, but sometimes that direction is what we crave, and ideas, bring them to the fore, and we'll be able to put resources to it. And sometimes funding bodies do appreciate these novel ideas, because we've done things certain ways for millennia, and it's really brought us to the position we're in. So maybe sometimes we do need that fresh perspective to address issues. So I do think that youth, and I always say, like, if my kids, if they learn something in school, and especially, let's say, literate, or whatever it might be, they will reinforce that in our minds as parents over and over. They won't let it down. So if we do it right with the education system and get them into thinking sometimes out of the box, I do think there is a lot of realm for the youth to really flourish in this zone, in the evolving, world and management.
Absolutely. So I want to move to something we all experience, stress, right? So a recent study published 1 in 3 young people in the Caribbean report symptoms of depression or anxiety, but many of them don't seek help. So Mr. IODK, help us to understand, how can we tell the difference between normal stress and a deeper mental health issue that needs addressing? And Dr. Basdeo, you could join him in explaining the signs and symptoms of anxiety and depression.
Okay, I'll jump in first. So the difference between normal everyday stress which of course is something subjective because your stress is not my stress, the student's stress is different from everyone. And I'm stressing that because I remember once I went to a parent-teachers meeting, and I remember all the parents saying, well, children don't have any stress. And I remember looking at them and saying, well, you know, stress is really that thing that is subjective to you. And if you look at psychological disorders, or if you want to categorize someone, it is usually you experiencing extreme situations or extreme circumstances over a period of time. So let's just say if I was crying for 2 days straight, that doesn't mean I'm depressed, right? It usually is over at least at minimum every day, a 2-week period. And now I just throw something out. Sometimes this could be a little controversial. Stress, and let me look at people, stress is your fault.
You heard it here
No
first.
one can stress you out because stress is a feeling. Stress is the perception we have based on some stimuli. So somebody does something, well, they stress me out. And it's usually because we don't like it. But we have a choice how we want to react to it. So I'll just throw that out there, and Doctor, go ahead.
Yohance, I love the conversation, how it's going. Look, youths, this is something, let's think of the mind as a garden. We're talking about the environment. Anxiety and depression are two sides of the same coin. Think of the mind, you can have weeds in your garden. Would you want a set of bush growing in your garden, weeds and these things like that? What would you like in your garden? Somebody. Flowers, some mangoes, right? Similarly, the human brain is neurologically developed and wired to have these thoughts in our minds. And these thoughts can either be positive thoughts or negative thoughts. You're standing on the race line, you're going to run 100 meters, and your mind is telling you, I am going to come first. I'm going to win. That's a positive thought. But then there's somebody at the race line thinking, wait, boy, look at, they've won going to take me in this race, boy, I lost already. That's what a negative thoughts, right? So you see the difference between the type of flowers and weeds we have in the mind. And these thoughts develop either fear, the feeling that something, a perception that we are not going to achieve something, we are not going to get something or have something taken away from us. And that fear triggers in us the overwhelming growth of these negative thoughts. Oh, I can't do it. This one, my friend thinks negatively of me. They would look at me. I'm not good enough to post a picture. I don't get the validation. I think it was raised earlier. And that fear leads to this perception in your mind that a lion is in front of you, a snake is in front of you. And it leads to your nervous system starts thinking, how do you start to feel if you are fearful? If a lion is in front of you right now, wild, on tame, how do you feel? Scared? What happens to your heart? Your heart rate goes up. What happens to your brain, your blood pressure goes up, your respiratory rate goes up. You start to breathe very fast. And you go from breathing deep in your diaphragm to breathing very shallow in your chest. And you start to panic, and it's called a panic attack, correct? So similarly, what's some of the lions we face in secondary school now? What's the biggest one? Exams. And my friends, this is causing us to now have these symptoms of anxiety, and we feel we're going to your exam, and before you even write the exam, Amira, you have all these symptoms of anxiety.
Actually, doctor, I disagree with you, you know. The exam's not causing the stress. It's your perception of the exams that causing the stress. You see, if you sit down and you study, right? Sure. Most times you face the exam with some sort of readiness, resiliency. It's like the same thing with the lion. If I see a lion in the room, I'm born in July, I'm a Leo, I might be excited to see the lion, right? So I'm saying again, we are in control of our perception of things. Sometimes we look at ourselves as victims of our environment, as victims of our circumstances, which really we have a lot of power in, right? It's your choice to be happy. It's your choice to be angry. Well, maybe not in Trinidad, because Trinidad we like to say, well, she get me angry and he caused me to do this. Yep. But that actually is a statement of disempowerment versus it's okay to be angry, but I choose to be angry.
Yeah, agreed. And just to wrap up on depression now, depression is the opposite of it. To the point now where you feel so overwhelmed with these negative thoughts that it affects your ability to even, you don't have the energy anymore. You don't have that feeling of being able to go out to your friends, go out on the fields, go out to your little social networks. Your appetite changes, your weight changes, your sleep is affected, you know, and this affects you all the way down to you feeling you're questioning your self-worth and these things like that. And again, Yohance, you're right. It's really a matter of how can we encourage persons to nurture the positive thoughts, the positive thinking amongst our youths, and that's probably something you all can share with us, ways where we can foster that this garden in our mind becomes more positive. And with perception, if we do have a challenge, we say, right, I prepare my best for my exam, I prepare the best for this race, let me go out there and give it my all, and you have that attitude, that mental perception of the situation that you're faced with.
Mr. Jacob, many young people today, they become very overwhelmed and stressed when it comes to, any guesses? Money. Money, right? Can you talk to us about some of the...
Not only the youths.
Not just youth, sir. It's not
Not
only
just
youth.
you.
But there's
I
a
can
youth
raise
forum.
my hand. But Mr. Jacob, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions they have about finances?
So that's a very good question. And the reality is this is not isolated to young people. Young people, middle-aged people, older people, everyone has different varying levels of stress when it comes to understanding monies and misconceptions when it comes to money. Sometimes some younger persons may think that they have a lot of time or time is on their side. But the reality is the poor choices or the poor money habits you make at your early stages in your career will follow you as time goes by. Especially when it comes to planning for your retirement. Some persons think that I'm too young, I'm now starting to work, I'm now starting to make some money. This is too soon for me to even be thinking about retirement. But the reality is, the analogy I like to make is think of planning for retirement as you're riding on a hill, right? The younger you are, the lower the gradient is. So it's the easier the ride. The older you become, it's like you're riding up a straight hill and you have to pedal. And if it is ever ride up a straight hill, it's pressure, right? So I think that understanding money at an early age, having certain conversations with your parents, let them talk to you about money, let them help you understand how money works, would tend to lay the proper foundation for your future when it comes to financial planning.
Got it. So Dr. LeBlanc, we're on the topic of managing stress, right? So what are some safe and effective natural remedies you can recommend to the youth today?
Right. So it's important to understand that, you know, when we say mental health, you all go to Google, TikTok, IG, because Facebook is for old people, right? Right? Where you going? Snapchat? Chat GPT, Lord help us. Well, now we're dead. But when we think of mental health and the youth think of mental health, they go, okay, well, either I have anxiety or depression. And then if they go to the older folks and they go, look, I'm not feeling well, or I need help, the first thing used to be, well, we need to give them antidepressants. We need to give them medication. And then now we're turning slowly saying, well, maybe not. Yeah? But then there's like, well, what do we do? Because there's obviously the garden needs watering or the garden needs some soil. So then they go natural remedies. And the first thing they went to was Bob Marley and Mary J and marijuana, right? And then you made it decriminalized so that it's good to smoke. The reality is, as I told you, all medicine has come from plants. But herbal medicine is not just take this bush here, take that bush there. You need a certified medical herbalist to go through and understand what you're feeling. Because it's not just, oh, I'm feeling anxious. There has to be a root cause. We have to understand where you're coming from. We have to understand what did you experience? What is causing that? Like, did your garden never get watered? Is it only dandelion in your garden, or is it only shadow benny? You understand? So we have to understand it. So when we speak of supplements, if you go to the pharmacy, you're going to see, first of all, valerian, you're going to see chamomile, you're going to see all these names, and they come up on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is going to say, buy this, buy that. You have to be cautious because the brands are very important. How they've been processed is important. So I always tell people when they come to me, before you come to me, look in your kitchen cabinet. You know, so simple things, cinnamon. All of us look around. So go to the market and you get cinnamon sticks. Cinnamon sticks are amazing for anxiety, palpitations, just calming you. Anybody from the Southland here? Awesome. Anybody know Tulsi? Awesome. So Tulsi, which is a holy basil, amazing supplement. So the point is that we have what grows around us that can be used. And if we speak to mommy, tanty, granny, you'll see that they use those. So we start there, understanding what we're feeling. From insomnia, I can't sleep. And because you didn't sleep, your garden didn't get watered, so you're feeling the anxiety, you're perceiving the stress, all of that. So we have to understand holistically, your brain, your spirit will only be balanced as long as your body is balanced and as long as you continuously restore and rejuvenate. So don't just think of a supplement like off the shelf. It has to be holistic. Yes, these things help, but it has to be very holistic when we think of mental health. But for supplements, first of all, I don't recommend supplements. I think it's important to get herbs, yeah? And understand, and we have to see where that person is, what's going on, to know the concentration. But start with your kitchen cabinet and not too much ChatGPT. No, ChatGPT is actually fun. I just started using it.
You know, it's great that we're able to have such an open conversation here with so many students, but this is not the reality. There's a lot of stigma around talking about mental health. So, Mr. IODK, can you talk to us about why you think there's so much stigma, especially in young men?
All right, so stigma is because, and I'll go from when I was growing up, first to current, is that generally men, and you ask about boys, men supposed to be perceived one as always strong, right? And we hear this all the time, it's cliche that, you know, boys not supposed to cry, etc. But I would go more local, is that generally in Trinidad and Tobago, I mean, I could speak some of the Caribbean too, is that when it comes to mental health, that's something that we're supposed to just know how to do. That we wake up one day, we just know how to handle everything. Just like someone said before, if I'm having problems with finances, I know I'll go to a financial advisor. Things external to us, I know who to go to, but when it comes to us, we are just supposed to know how to do everything like that. And that, of course, led us to this point where I remember in the, I think it's the early 80s, when people were now describing an anxiety attack. People thought it was a heart attack at first, because you couldn't think something that is not physical could have me feeling this way. But the definition for human behavior is thought into feeling into action. What we think creates energy, which is a feeling that fuels our behavior. So once we start to have that understanding of that, and even if I was to give a simplified definition for what mental health is, mental health is the quality of your thoughts, your feelings, and your behavior as it relates to your environment. So your environment could be people, it could be a situation, it could be a school environment. So let me say that again, the quality of your thoughts, feelings, and behavior in relation to your environment. So that means if you walk into a classroom and you say good morning, and nobody tell you good morning back, right? If you start to say, well, everybody don't like me, right? Something probably wrong with me. That's the quality of your thoughts. If you think, well, people have to tell me good morning, they have no manners or what, and they get angry, and you're angry for the entire day. That's the quality of your thoughts. And remember, all of these things are a choice. And I keep stressing that because many times people look at themselves as a victim. We have the power to decide how we feel. Sometimes we may not have the tools, which is fine, but we have the power to do that.
But I'm going to be devil's advocate, can I? Right. So, but for the youth, if they have not had the opportunity to have that learned behavior or that nourishing environment, then is it really, for example, if they didn't grow up in a nourishing environment that allows them to be able to say, I can express that I feel sad. I can express that I feel happy. I don't perceive this as a stress. You understand? Because some of them really have come out of very stressful situations in life. Then how does one like that try to get help? By not saying it's not my thoughts, because they have not learned any positivity. So how do we change that?
Firstly, it depends on your level of success in any environment. Everyone here knows what they want to accomplish from various environments, from various situations. We know. And if you realize you're not accomplishing it, so no matter what age, sometimes we tend to say, well, why does these things always keep happening to me? Or why do I keep experiencing these similar things? When you realize that you're in a cycle, most times it's because your tools, even if it wasn't your fault, even if it's what your parents gave you or your situation gave you, realizing that it's not working, so maybe now I can do something different or seek something different.
Absolutely. How many of you all heard of the term self-care? Right. So Dr. Basdeo, let's talk about self-care, and I am not talking about social media quotes.
Or the mani-pedi.
Yeah, so look, self-care is really, first and foremost, like the Honorable Minister of Health, Education had said, who am I? And when we ask that question to ourselves, we can then start to understand who we truly are. I'm a teenager, I attend such and such school. These are questions only you can answer. And when you answer that, then you can come up with a routine that can cater towards who you are. Because if you like to dance, self-care for you shouldn't be going and running along a physical track and putting yourself into something that is deemed self-care. If dancing is your routine that brings you calm, brings you a set of peaceful and your stress relief, that is your self-care routine. So the question of self-care means that it must be personally tailored. And that's why you have individuals. Yohance and I were talking about this earlier, that every individual, like you, the word youth has you in it. You are unique. You are special. So my advice is to find a daily routine that tends to who you are. And some basic generic advice, and then you add now your branding to it and your types of flair to it, is try to wake up at a certain time. Have a morning routine. Your morning routine is going to look different from my morning routine. I like to do some stretches. You might like to do some running. You might like to do some deep breathing. These are all proven things to help take care of yourself. Another thing is hygiene. As young adults, this is a huge important part. Your body is changing. You're growing. You're now evolving into these different phases of adolescence. And it's important to look after yourself as well too. Have a conversation with yourself in the mirror. This is where social media and taking selfies is actually useful. Take a picture of yourself. Have a conversation with yourself. How do I see myself? How can I, improve? Who am I? Am I going to just improve my physical outlook? Or am I going to build character, build strength, build these sorts of things in it? And then you go through your day with these activities, whether it's school, you set your goals, and then have a nighttime routine as well too. So hobbies that are very important. You see, anything that involves deep breathing, I would recommend you get into that as youths. So whether it's swimming, dancing, yoga, Zumba, you name it, there's an activity that is important to you that find your passion, find your hobby. And when you do that, dedicate that part of your day to yourself. That is the time you tell your parents where you are. If it's outside of the home in a group like a sports club or a youth club or something like that. If it's within the home, mom, dad, elder, whoever is taking care, this is my time. I am taking care of myself. And sit with yourself. Journaling is another huge important thing. There's so many apps now, right? Apps are like the common thing. You can download, you can even talk to ChatGPT and make a record. Today I feel sad. Today I feel angry. My friend John, he was so rude to me and I didn't expect that from him. And then you look back at it and you realize, oh, these are my thoughts And that is how you can actually now change those thoughts the next time that situation occurs. And that, my friends, to me is the little thing that I can give on self-care.
Dr. Basdeo mentioned adding flair. So Dr. Dhanraj, I wanted to come to you with this. How can we add this flair to our environment in a way that encourages the youth to feel more supported by the environment?
If I had to address, I would think it would start with policy, and that could be at the school level, at the community then, and then even finally, obviously you would need a lot of influence from the government as well. Now, when you look at schools, it is the place of education where you learn things. I mean, initially, in my day, we would have learned about the greenhouse gases and the greenhouse effect, and that created global warming. And what is the gas that is associated with global warming? Any takers? What layer is up there in the stratosphere?
Which one?
Ozone.
The
Sounds
ozone.
familiar? Do you know that ozone is also created from the ground as a result of increase in temperatures? Nobody. So that is important. Have you heard about microplastics? Yeah? Microplastics are these really small bits of plastic that can result of it being in the environment and being weathered. But the harm comes when it accumulates in our food chain. Doctors have been able to find in plaque buildup in our hearts microplastics. Even in certain organ systems, microplastic. How does it accumulate? Fish, small fish would feed on the plastics, then bigger fish, it comes up in our food chain. Those are the dangers that need to be addressed on the curriculum. But let's say we are at school. What sort of efforts can we do? You know, look at the energy efficient ways in school. Look at, reducing the use of paper. I mean, laptops, devices, if it's one good thing out of COVID, is that it taught us how to do things online. Maybe we should explore continuing that. Maybe not as the sole way of education, but in different ways. School gardens, composting. When you look at, I always hear the term box lunch. When you think about a box lunch, where all those boxes go? After. In our dumps, and sadly sometimes our dumps are just really, as it's termed, dumps, not even to the extent of landfills. But maybe instead of having a school, meals prepared out of the school, maybe we can inculcate that we use reusable plates and cups and utensils in school. Teach kids, how to, wash these dishes and take care of these things. That would encourage recycling, reducing waste, and all these things will go along the way of what we're trying to achieve and reducing those harmful buildup of pollution or substances that create pollution. Also, I mean, if I had to think, I mean, sometimes the cheaper things may not be the best things. When you look at the amount of plastics in our geometry sets and rulers, maybe we should look to choose wooden rulers instead of plastic rulers. Maybe pencils might be better than ink pens and plastic ink pens. Who knows? Because we're all using computers now. In any case, how much do we really write? I'm not saying write it is not important, but just to rethink the school system. Take a fresh look. We've been doing it a certain way, but we rethink the curriculum, rethink what our focus, and yes, always passing exams will be the end point, but it's not the sole thing. There are other softer skills that I think need to come into the school system. And when we create that sort of mindset in the youth, it leads into the community events. We can look at a community, how do we have a community garden? How do we take care of our parks and littering sites? And that sort of momentum, helps the community. And then out of those efforts, we get the legislative arm, the politicians to recognize these efforts and the fruit that they do bear. And that, I think, is how it goes.
Yeah.
With education at a different level.
If I may jump in there, Dr. Dhanraj, I really echo your sentiments there because we need to rethink the schooling system, right, youths? Aren't you all tired of just classrooms where it's just paper, meaning exams, classes, and stuff like that. If we add to your day things like a 5-minute break to just check in, just to have 5 minutes of silence, just to calm the nervous system back down. In the morning, we have a time of tidying our schools. We have a little green space. Every school has a green space where at the end of every season, you actually get the mango, you get the zabukas, and you're taking that home. You're making a chow in school. You're learning skills in schools, building kites again, building box carts. These are the things that we have to develop into our education system so that our youths realize that education is not just a purely academic process, but it's a holistic development of who you are as an individual. And during your days from 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. or 3 p.m., you have activities that are meant to develop your holistic health, your mental health, your social skills, your financial literacy. As a doctor, I graduated at the age of 30 years after studying so long, and I knew nothing about financial literacy. I had to rely on persons like Daron to tell me, oh, you know, you should start a savings plan, you should start a pension plan, an annuity, and these things like that. So really good conversation there, Dr. Dhanraj.
So we talked a lot about the importance of protecting our mental health and by extension our environment. So I wanted to turn to an issue that's often very closely connected but harder to talk about, and that is substance abuse. So Caribbean teens experimenting with substances like marijuana and alcohol at increasingly younger ages. So Dr. Basdeo and Mr. IODK, you can join in as well. Why do you think teenagers are often more vulnerable, and can you explain why some substances might feel harmless in the moment but have longer lasting effects?
Yeah, so I have a question to the youths in the audience. At what age does your brain stop developing? At what age? Guess.
She
Yeah?
said 21.
21. Yeah. 21. 25. We got the answer. It's actually 25. So the human brain is like plasticine. It can be molded, it can be shaped. After the age of 25, your neuroplasticity, it stops developing, it stops molding. So protect your brain as if it's the most valuable asset up until the age of 25. And why it is so vulnerable is that because your brain is developing, it is natural for the human brain to feel the sense of reward, the sense of gratification, the sense of pleasure. So we have substances out there, chemicals, that give you that immediate gratification. It releases chemicals in your brains like dopamine, serotonin, and you feel as if you've accomplished something by just taking in these substances. And one of those substances that is one of the most highly addictive substances is known as nicotine. And that nicotine is now being marketed and branded in a way that is targeting you, the youths. Oh, Berry Burst and Fruity Fluty and what's it? I see the smiles, I know it. They're targeting you because they know that's what you like. Because who here doesn't like ice cream and sweet tasting things? I love that, right? But that also is what they're using to hide these chemicals like nicotine and adding it to these products, particularly vaping. And I encourage each one of you all to go out there and see there. What you're doing now is you're taking away your future by making your brain dependent on a chemical. You know what that chemical is? That chemical is replacing your financial freedom in the future. That chemical is replacing your success because you're now replacing the ability, the drive to do things like actually set a goal, set a long-term goal. I want to become a pilot. I want to become a coach. I want to be this. You're replacing that with that immediate gratification. So some of the most addictive substances to youths right now is nicotine through vaping and tobacco. Thankfully, we're not seeing the youths actually smoking cigarettes, but don't be fooled. Vaping is as dangerous and highly addictive as
worse.
tobacco. And what it's leading to is addictions to other substances like alcohol, marijuana, and even harder substances. And it's leading to this addictive personalities where you can't come off your phone, you're into gambling, you're into these video games, and your brain is just wired totally different. So my friends, I hope I can call myself your friend, but do not let the industry, do not let these chemicals corrupt and shape your brain that will be permanently damaged by the age of 25 by these substances. Agreed? Yeah? Thumbs up.
All right, and I'll just add to that. And sometimes I think, especially when I'm talking to youth or even anyone, sometimes you don't like to hear this. When we are dependent on something like a substance, that actually is a form of weakness. Well, let me say that, right? And this is not an indictment on anyone. If I don't have the tools, because sometimes you don't have the tools, then you wouldn't able to do something. Because usually when I ask, especially youth, why do you smoke? Why do you vape? Well, I just needed to relax. But do you have any other tools? No. Or I don't even want any other tools because it's easy, right? And anytime you're choosing the easy way out, then you would not accomplish what you need to accomplish in life. Because think about it. If you're choosing to go to the gym and you're only lifting 5-pound weights and you spend an hour lifting 5-pound weights, you could say do something, but you're not really getting any stronger. So when you're stressed or dealing with life situations and, well, I just need to smoke, or I just need to vape, or I just need to go on my phone, that is actually choosing the 5-pound weight. So then when life really happens, and a 10-pound weight come, or a 15-pound weight come, you have no idea what to do. So you get caught back up into the smoking to feel the relief. But it's really building that strength. And I'm saying that because I think that children of this generation, way more intelligent than us.
I agree.
Way more intelligent than us. But because you all have things, and I'm going to sound like a real old man here, you all have things easier than us, it makes you all a little weaker.
Right.
Because I would ask, and I would see it, youths I help counsel and coach, they have creative ways to find the easy way out.
Right.
Right? And finding the easy way out wouldn't prepare for life. All the students here, you know that this is the easiest time of your life. Right now, this is the easiest time of your life. And if you're not prepared, if you're going to the gym and lifting only the 5-pound weights, and you know what I mean, the mental gym, you're not putting yourself under any pressures or you're dependent on some kind of substance, when life really hits you, you will want to cut yourself, you will want to take a substance, you will want you have suicidal thoughts, and you will go along all the lines of all the mental illnesses instead of preparing yourself. So, and I'll just add quickly, also to the parents here, it's kind of all your fault too, right? And let me explain why. At least parents of my age range, I was born in the 1980s, right? Parents often tell me, I want to give my child everything I didn't have. Okay, but if you're not giving them the hard work that you also have, then they believe the world is, I could get whatever I want with minimal work. So then when life really hits you, you're not mentally prepared for it. But then we will do that, and then at 18 we expect them to know how to do everything. But it's a training process, and even we're talking about the brain. Your brain is like a muscle. Whatever you train it to do, that's what they are accustomed to do. So if you train a child that they can get wherever they want with minimal effort, then that's how they will view the world and they wouldn't be prepared for it.
Amira,
Yes.
I think it's important to understand as well that just like yesterday we spoke with the Minister of Health speaking about sugar and salt and childhood obesity. So he's saying it's our fault. And really and truly it is everybody's fault because of food security. And so the quality of food that we've also been giving to our young people has also put them back as well. And we have to look at that. So this is a time for everyone to make a change, because while we can give them the tools and the brain could work, if we don't give them a good substrate to eat with, off of, then that brain is not going to be able to work. So we do have to look at it it's a complex but yet simple solution in terms of really us getting back to basics. Taking fresh air, walking, eating properly, remembering what we grew up on. And that is very important. The conversations, the family games, you know, all of that.
Chores.
The chores. Just make up your damn bed.
I ask them,
I'll pay you $5.
Exactly. I ask parents, what, or even the children, they come, Mr. Yohance, I having issues with my child. All right. I'll ask, what chores do you do? None. Right? And chores give us the responsibility, the mental grit, the mental awareness, even sometimes problem-solving skills to figure out how to finish these things. All of those things which will equip you for life.
But that's preparing them for the 10 pound. So
Right.
that, you know, we have to look at that. So when Yohance says to all of us, it's your fault, it's your fault, he is right. But really and truly, just like Dr. Dowlett said, we have to, policy has to be effective. So
Yeah.
we can no longer just talk a talk. So, you know, we have to walk the walk as adults, as policymakers, and the youth. And if you look at the youth mental health strategy from Healthy Caribbean Coalition, and y'all can go Google that and chat GPT that. I mean, the youth are crying out to us, saying, let us make a change now. So it's very important.
Yeah, to build on that actually, Dr. Basdeo, the youth crying out, can you tell us about some signs in terms of what can parents look out for? How do we know when we need to step in with our kids? And
Right.
this is not just, oh, my child is acting out.
Good. So to all parents out there, I encourage you, I have no benefit from this. There's a book called The Anxious Generation. It's a New York Times bestseller. And it has shown how, with the advent of the smartphone, the youth have changed. The world has changed since these devices, especially these front-facing cameras. It has taken away the interactions of the youths. So you have lost your ability. Where we grew up in the classroom settings and in the school settings, we had to sit down and face each other. We did not have the luxury of having a phone to communicate with each other. So what I'm saying to you, the youths, is to bear in mind that everything in life should be in moderation. And you use your technology and your devices to its benefit, but there should be a time and place for moderation as well. So as a parent, you will notice that your child, their behavior is a change. That's a big question that we have. Have you noticed a difference in the behavior of your child? Communication, and like Yohance said, we put a lot of shouldering of the responsibility and the not blame per se, but on the responsibility on the parents. You are responsible to communicate with your child, with your children. And we were saying this before, right, Devon? It's not about communicating at your children, speaking at your children. It is getting down to them. As a family doctor, you know what I'm doing now? Trying to learn Gen Z lingo, so that when those adolescents come into my clinic, I can understand them and not communicate to them in some sort of language. And, you know, I can use some of the lingos that you all would use as well, right? So look out for signs of sleeping longer. Diet is affected. They're either overeating or undereating. You'd also see a lack of energy, lack of interest. Keep a close eye on your peers, on your friendships. People say youths don't have stress. When you have fights and quarrels and friendships break up, you lose your best friend. They wore something, the same thing, and you told each other not to wear it, and they ended up wearing the same thing. These are the issues, these are real issues. And we can, as adults, say that it's not big issues, but it's a big issue to them. So communicate with them and look out for these signs amongst our young population.
Can I add us one sign quickly?
Yeah.
Yes, everything, and of course there are many signs. One thing is there's something called revenge, sleep, procrastination.
Yes.
Right? So I'll say that again. There's something, this for the parents. Revenge, sleep, procrastination. It means that, so let's go to the revenge part. I spend my day doing things I didn't want to do, so I take in the revenge in the night and procrastinating to sleep. Now, that has many layers, because when you see, well, why he or she always up in the night? What they're really doing? They're on the phone, they're talking to somebody, whatever the case, they're playing video games. Why does they feel the need to do that? And it's because many times children feel, I mean adults too, we spend the day doing things we don't really want to do. So when I finally finish those things, I could take some time to myself and be for myself. So even question them and find out, well, what it is maybe going on during the day that you feel now you have to take revenge in the night to procrastinate from your sleep.
Yeah, so I feel we can't mention the term substance abuse without saying peer pressure. So I wanted to talk about some realistic and respectful ways to resist peer pressure when this comes up. And this is open to all panelists as well. Mr. IODK, we could start with you.
You said respectful ways, right?
Yes. Respectful.
Why a question at first? Because sometimes, and you all will know, if somebody pressuring you to do something, pressure usually comes from a place of force, right? I'm using that first. So sometimes to resist that force, you may not have to be respectful, And this is for the youth. If someone is coming to you to pressure you to do something, whether it is we talk about vaping, drinking alcohol, smoking weed, whatever it is, and you told that person no, right? Or you indicate, nah, I'm not interested in that, but they're still coming at you. Maybe you just need to you find a way. Now, I'm not encouraging nobody to use obscene language or to injure anybody's child. But if it is somebody coming at you for something that could be harmful to you, and you started by saying no, maybe you tell a teacher, etc., then you'd have to find a way, right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But you'd have to find a way to resist it because it's based on your life. Plus, this is what I was talking about preparing children for the real world. The real world is you will meet people who want to influence you in some way. And if you shelter your child and keep them away from emotional and mental, I wouldn't say hardships, but challenges, then without you, they can't function. And I have plenty of parents who come to me and say, well, I'm afraid to let my child go secondary school, I'm afraid to let my child go university because they're not prepared. Why they're not prepared? Because you didn't put them under some sort of hardship, some sort of challenges. So part of the key is to resisting peer pressure is start to put them under some sort of pressure, because when the peer pressure comes, if they're not accustomed to the pressure, then they wouldn't know what to do. It have many children now who never take public transport, right?
Yep.
I know times change and things like that, but even if, and this is coaching I've done with parents, the parents, they come in the maxi too and let the child do it themselves. Let's give an example. You let your child go out and pump the gas instead of you doing it. Just little things to expose them to the real world instead of keeping them sheltered and therefore not ready or able to handle any type of pressure.
And
But
having
sometimes
real conversations.
we spoke about the negative aspect of peer pressure. It had good peer pressure as well too. Because sometimes if it is you have a group of friends and somebody doing something that's not necessarily to their best advantage, and the group pressuring that person to stop that bad behavior, that is the positive sides of peer pressure. So for example, you talk about vaping. If it is there's a group of friends and one person getting into vaping and the other friends telling them or pressuring them like, yo, that way you're doing that, not really good for you, cut that out, or you go stop lying with you, you go stop talking to you, right? Because the pressure will be so heavy to not want to be ostracized from the group, you would get away or you would leave the negative attributes or the negative things that you're doing in order to still be accepted by the group. So that's positive peer pressure as well.
And one thing about youths is that we don't see the long-term effects of our actions, and we don't understand it. So something as simple as succumbing to peer pressure and putting a vape into your mouth and taking a vape. You may see others doing it and thinking, oh, well, yeah, they survived and they were right. But my friends, that is going to have very dangerous and life-changing permanent effects on your lungs and your cardiovascular disease. And I'm having a conversation here and I'm thinking, any physics students in here, pressure is what? Force over, excellent, force over area. So that force, sometimes we can't stop that force. That force comes either positive or negative, Devon. But what we can do is improve the area. How do we improve the area? By finding a group of people who are more like-minded like us, and we associate ourselves amongst our peers, right? We're not vaping, we're not about drinking in the back of the school, we're not about bullying others, and you find a group of persons and you create a sort of community amongst your peers, so you're increasing your area. So you're decreasing the pressure by increasing the denominator. So that's just my physics way of thinking of it as well too, not just in the medical field as well. But what do you all think? I'd love to hear what the kids have to say and make your own suggestions how you combat peer pressure. Tell us, what are some of the ways that you would combat peer pressure, Amira?
So we're soon going to open up the floor for some Q&As, but I wanted to talk very quickly about switching bad habits for bigger goals. So Mr. Jacob, I'm going to ask you, I want to talk about financial independence. So what does this look like for somebody under 18, and what are some steps they can take to achieve financial independence?
Financial independence is a mindset, right? financial independence would look different for a lot of persons based on their circumstance or their current situation. For a person, if it is you are a person, let's say you're going to university, financial independence may look like you being able to meet all your expenses and may not necessarily have to work 2 and 3 jobs to fill your needs. Or when it is you finish university, pay off your student loans, right? When they enter the work environment, financial independence means basically having a budget, understand where it is your money goes, and be able to properly itemize or take account of all of your spending habits. Because sometimes poor spending habits does leave persons in a place of constraint where they can't really move anymore. And this is something that is habits that they develop at a young age for a lot of different reasons. Probably because your parents never spoke to you about money. Probably because your parents think or never taught you how to budget. Probably it may be a situation of your parents try to shield you from those things and you grow up thinking that my parents may have money and their money is my money, right? And I grew up living or feeling as though everything is set for me because my parents make my life easy, right? So all of these areas as it relates to financial independence is really mindset. It all starts off in your mind, and if you have a proper mindset and a proper relationship with money, you will have a great life moving forward as a child, as an adult moving forward, and into the later parts of your life.
Okay, thank you. So Dr. LeBlanc, I'm going to ask you the last question. Put you on the spot. What is a mindset shift or habit, even a lesson, that you believe the youth could benefit from when it comes to this holistic approach to well-being?
A mindset shift or habit. I think the greatest thing is communication and understanding what you really are feeling. For the youth, I have 5 children, and they all differ in their mindsets. And I think it's just important for them to all know, number one, your parents are there, communicate with us, and actually tell me, because they would tell me. Sometimes they tell me something I don't think of. Sometimes what I think is anxiety or what I think is stress is really not stress and it's something totally different. So I think for the young people of today, I find that long ago, babies used to come out of the uterus with a floppy head and you had to hit them to cry. Now they walk out of the uterus with an iPad in their hand. So, the reality is they're much more developed than we think, and we need to give the young people credit. So for me, it is stop, breathe, understand that the world is not going to end tomorrow, even though you're hearing that, and just take it one day at a time. One day at a time. And the devices are great, but stop, look at your parents, look at your peers, have that conversation, and just become stronger within yourself. And that will be amazing, because once you love yourself, then you don't need anyone to make you happy, because your love for yourself, your self-care is the greatest power that can exist and allow you to fail and get up back much stronger.
I'm going to need you to write that down for me. Read it every morning. Panelists, thank you so much for joining me here today, and thank you for being part of this big initiative. I hope to see you all next year, and I think it's safe to say we can open it up for the Q&A. So if any students had any questions, now is your time to ask any of our incredible panelists. Any questions? You could just raise your hand.
Give in to the peer pressure and ask a question.
We have a question. Yeah, you have a question. I know that.
Hi, I was wondering, what were your views on how relationships can affect teenagers, like relationships with older people, like friends who are a lot older than you in different forms?
You mean like older friends?
Yeah.
Like how old? How old are you?
Oh, I'm 13 years old.
Right, so a friendship, we're talking a friendship, right?
A friendship, yes,
Right,
yes,
good.
a friendship.
How old, like 18?
Probably with older people, yeah.
Older people?
Yeah.
Well, it really depends on if the older person is nice.
Oh.
So, because that's how you learn. So I think as a mother, I have no problems with younger people having friendships that are older, but it's always good to make sure that if you have an older friend, that you let them meet your parents and your elders, because then they can understand what that relationship is about, and they can see if they're leading you up or down a gum tree,
Yeah.
right? And so but that's fine, because they might be giving you, and you might be surprised, you might be teaching them something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? So there's nothing wrong with a friendship, but it's about you being comfortable to tell your adults in your life, this is my friend, and they must be, if an older friend is afraid of your adults in your life, run for the hills.
Yeah,
Yeah?
okay.
Because they should be welcoming both ways. Yeah?
Yeah.
And is
Thank
a
you so
friendship
much.
is a friendship referring to, right?
Yeah,
It's not a ting ship.
No.
All right.
Now, why I ask that is because your intent may be friendship, but the other person's intent may be something else. And the something else don't have to be romantic. It could just be something that is not in sync with what you want.
Yeah.
So it's also good to ask questions about their intentions, so even whether they upfront or not, but still kind of ask questions and observe.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not about any
That's a great
situationships
question,
and
by the
all that,
way.
but a great question all the same. So you guys had a question in the back here. What was your question?
If looks could kill
Oh,
Robert,
you have a
dead.
question now.
Hi everyone, I'm Rissia. What's my question? Oh, right. So,
Dr. LeBlanc?
yeah, no,
The-
next him.
The?
Yeah. So my question was, for the parents, you were saying that how, okay, what's it? I forgot. Basically, you're saying that how parents have to really be mindful with we kids and try to understand we kids more when it comes to we well-being and try to help talk to us. If we, like for example, if I go home and tell them this, and I kind of
Just
give them
now,
a kind of
repeat that.
If you have a,
to go home and explain them what happened today.
You said
And
if
it
you're having
kinda-
difficulty to explain,
how them reacted, how should I handle the situation?
Great
All right.
question.
One, let's start with if something is difficult to explain, I would say always begin with writing it down first, right? Before you give it to anybody. Whether you show people or not, you write it down so you can get your thoughts out. When I say write, it could be in your notes app, it could be anywhere. You write it down so you get your thoughts out. Then, well, you see, you can't really control how your parents react. But what you could do is be as honest as you can be, right? And then the parents listening is that we all, well, let's say hopefully, want to be able for our children to come to us to say what it is going on. So sometimes it's better to listen. Because you know, if you want to jump in, from the time you hear something, you get triggered by something and you want to say something. Listen first. Let them finish everything. And then when they give the full stop, then put in your 2 cents. Also, remember that, and this is the mental and emotional part. When it comes to children, of course we have emotions attached. And this is to the children too. Of course your parents have some kind of emotions attached to you. So if you come and tell your parents something that may be a little triggering to them, understand too that your parents human, and parents understand too that we were once children, and then also even though I don't want my child to end up in XYZ situation, but the truth is if it happens, I give them the space to come and talk to me so that we could deal with it in reality versus ostracizing them.
I have a question on how we should approach disagreements between adults versus children, because it's always told that opposition is always equal to disrespect, but sometimes it isn't, and it's from a genuine place. So how should we approach that in the best way possible, most respectful way possible?
send the parents to therapy.
Yeah. No, but that's a real good question. That's actually a youth that's telling us, as adults, to the adults in the audience, that we have to really look at how we communicate with our younger population, because we have to honor and respect that youth's way of communicating is going to be energetic, vibrant. They want to climb on the table and make their point, those sort of things. How do we mediate that, my friend, is we have like mediation. If you think that your way of communicating, you're not getting your point across to your parent and it's being misunderstood or not being relayed in that way, again, as Yohance said, start with writing. But this is where you can recommend to your parents, let's try a therapist. Let's try counseling. Let's try a family therapist. And let's sit together, the three of us, with a mediator and have a conversation. And that's one way to, as a youth, to recommend to your parents if you think that communication isn't happening there. And to the parents, we must go in, it's a communication skill. We were taught this as family doctors. Don't just ask yes or no questions. Ask open-ended questions. Ask your children, how are you feeling? Tell me all about your day. Or, are you good? Yes or no. Your chances are you're going to get a lie to that question that is close-ended.
Also, you will always find another adult in your family that you can speak to and that will help you and that parent communicate. So I was always seen as disrespectful. You could see that, right? Yeah? So it took my grandmother saying to my parents, you have to listen. She's not being rude. She's actually telling you something. So while we would like you to go to therapy, in your family you might have a therapist. It might be granny, tanty, yeah, or a cousin, and see if that works, because sometimes that will work.
And you can also, as young people, reach out to your systems in schools, either your teachers. You have now counselors in schools and accessibility to people that you can talk to. You know, it's in our national pledge, or elders and those in professional capacities who you can reach out to as well. If you don't have a home environment where you feel safe or you feel that there's somebody that you can speak of.
You could even go to your doctor. You tell them you have a tummy ache and you reach us, and then we figure it out.
For sure. And we as family doctors, we are trained to say, Mommy, Daddy, please exit the room. We're going to have a conversation.
Yeah, can we talk?
Directly with our young person. Yeah.
Definitely would be gone are the days where kids are seen and not heard, and that method of parenting that might have worked then has to evolve, and that's where the homework for parents really needs to step up to the game.
Yeah.
So some really rich conversation here, so I think we can take 2 more questions because they have 2 burning questions here. And then I'm sure we'd like to hear an adult response to what they're hearing and how they're responding to this new relationship.
Okay, so to add on to her question, right? The opinion when it comes to parents, when we show our views, they turn back and say, oh, we wasn't taught like that, or their tradition ways that they were taught compared to how we put our views and how we speak in the term of, they would say disrespectful. Yeah. So when we talk out our views, they'll be like, no, that's not how it is, and then they'll go on with,
they put you in the box of disrespect.
Yeah.
And so you're not heard at all.
Yeah. So like, I do 11 subjects, right? And when I put out the opinion of, you know, that's a lot of work, and I need a break as well, even though I have lessons, I have school and all of those things. They throw back and say, oh, that's not how it is. You need to push forward.
Can I answer this?
Yeah, you probably should.
All right. Now, I don't know if your parents here, right? But
record it.
Let's go with facing the reality. So let's just say you can't change your parents. Let's go that your parents will never change, right? So helping you navigate it. And I'll give you an example that what I did when I was young. I remember doing chores at home, and it have ways that I could do it that was different from what my parents taught me. But they would say, no, it has to be this way, right? After I realized, you know what, maybe I should come from the avenue of be on the same page. So, you know, I want to be, this is me talking to my parents, I want to be more effective with sweeping the house and cleaning the house. So let me see if I could try something new. I know you're way good, but let me see if I could try something new. So what you could do is present it to them in a way that is still aligned with their goals, but it's still your goals. So let's just say you need a break. You could break down a 24-hour day. and show them I sleep this amount of time, and they break it down empirically, right? I sleep this amount of time, I in school this amount of time, I study this amount of time. I have this amount of time left, right? Do you think I should still be whatever, or can I take a break for half hour? Because you could show maybe I have 2 hours left. So if I take a break for 45 minutes, I still have 1 hour and 15 minutes left to do X, Y, Z. But present it to them in a way that is not emotional, versus you could actually show them I want to accomplish the same goals as them.
And don't give up, you know. I mean, adults can be pains to the domestic beast of burden sometimes. But the important thing for you is that y'all don't give up. And don't think that you are being disrespectful. Just keep pushing gently, and they should listen, and find someone who listens to help you through it as well. Don't give up, because y'all actually are the leaders of tomorrow, so we have to let you
and this statement might be something that you have to go on a little bit of faith, but most adults around the ages of 30 or so then start to have a proper relationship with their parents. Up until that age, you realize your parents still telling you how to do things, how to work, how to do this, and you then start to realize, like Yohance said, you're not going to change your parents. You're not going to suddenly say, all right, this is not my mother, this is not my father, this is not my parent. You start to sort of accept and understand who they are, how they grew up. And one of the ways as a young person you can start to think it, look at your grandparents and ask them to tell you stories, your grandparents, about how they raised their children. And maybe you may better understand why your parents are the way they are. As long as there's no abuse and you're not in any danger physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually, financially, you develop this sense of acceptance, but not submission. You still find the tools with your critically thinking self. How do I find time for myself, knowing that my parents have this way of thinking and standing up for myself? I must say, it's very brave of her to open up and express herself in this way, and I'm so proud that someone like you can feel so confident and brave to express your emotions and your feelings.
And use that, yes, Clapper, use that as your 10 pound. Use that, because that experience will help you with future relationships with anyone, from your boss to whoever. So that's the important thing, that everything that happens to you in life is an experience, and we have to make a positive out of that experience. How does that mold me to be stronger and better? Yeah?
And do better when you have children.
Oh, Delhi, yes.
So I'm going to get to, what's the general age group here? 13. So I'm going to reduce my age right now to 13 to ask the question on behalf of the children, because I know it's something that's burning them. And it was raised briefly by you, Dr. Basdeo, with regards to the gap, that generation gap. What are some of the ways to bridge the gap between the Gen Z, not just the lingo, but the behaviors, their desires? You know, there's that old adage, plant a tree for which shade you may never enjoy, which means what we do today, they are going to experience, and so they are voicing that. So it's not just a language barrier. How do they bridge that gap now with parents, with uncles, with people around them, without showing levels of disrespect or the perception of disrespect? I think that's kind of summing it up, yeah?
The adults in the audience have to change. I mean, the adults, for example, I listen to my children's music with them, as dirty as it sounds. Yeah, I look for the clean versions. But we have to change, and that's a fact. So to bridge the gap is to have a conversation, is to say, hey, Mom, what about this thing? Or, you know, don't sometimes back away, let the emotion come out of it, and then come back again. Journal it, so you could see really, because I know you'll be real vexed or something. And if you write that down, you'll be like, oh dear, I really shouldn't be upset. You know what I mean? So take a step back, breathe, and understand that we too, like, I love listening to some of your music, some of it I wonder about it, but you know, and let's have that interchange, I think. Let adults have to grow as well. We have to learn, and it's a very, very huge and amazing dynamic between parents and children and adults and children.
I think one of the greatest challenges, Robert, is the technology. Sorry, to the students, it's technology. And we all are growing up in such a rapidly evolving world. You know, Stuart and I were yesterday talking about how rapidly technology changes. And for adults, it's very difficult for them to keep up. So what I'll encourage you as the youths to do is to be the teachers to your parents of the technology. Take some time, have some patience. Hey, mom, dad, let me show you this new thing that is out. This is TikTok. This is ChatGPT. You can speak to ChatGPT and it speaks back to you. I had the same challenge with my parents and my grandparents and stuff, and I never thought they would have been on Facebook. We know Facebook is for old people now.
Old people.
But we got them there, and they were actually interested, and we as the younger generation were able to show it them. So now you as the Gen Z generation, show us. I'm encouraging you, I'm putting you on the spot as the young people to come and teach us. Tell us what the lingo is. Tell us what the language is, what the music is, what the technology is, what the youths are doing, and that way we can better understand you guys.
But can I say something? Learn as well. Because your history can't be erased and should not be erased or forgotten. And to reach where you are today as young women especially, where you are in school and telling us everything eloquently, took a lot of work from your foremothers and forefathers. And I say this because we have to understand from where they came and what struggles they had. So also, we have to put ourselves and understand that history and see where it's going so that we could take that history, because you are the future, but without knowing your history, there's no good future. So listen to that as well and understand that.
All right, so thank you, Dr. Blanc. Thank you again to all the panelists. Unfortunately, we are out of time today for questions because we have another panel coming up, but you can send your questions in to us at our email. It's register@uhealthdigest.com. And for the students, we are on social media, so we can try to connect you to people we think that can be helpful. But thank you so much for your attention, and thank you for joining us.